legions of powerful men being canceled, losing their jobs. Did you want that to happen to Johnny Depp?
Of course not. It wasn't about him.
Okay, well, that was a lie. Maybe she somehow has convinced herself that she really loves Johnny.
And said you were acting. What do you say to that?
Says the lawyer for the man who convinced the world he had scissors for fingers. I'm the performer.
I don't think Johnny Depp convinced anyone he had scissors for fingers. He was playing a role and he was doing it well, but everyone knew it was a role. Whereas you're playing a role and you're not doing it well, and everyone knows, once again, it's a role. Hi, this is Deb Kielmeyer here. I'm a board-certified psychiatrist, and I've been giving my expert opinion on the Johnny Depp versus Amber Heard case, and I am back to do another video. If you like this video, please make sure to subscribe if you haven't already, like the video, comment, turn on notifications, everything that you're supposed to do. So, since my last video, a couple of things have happened. One of the jurors from the Johnny versus Amber case spoke out about the case, as well as Amber had an interview that was recorded a while ago and that got released to the public. So while these things have been very much all over social media, I have specifically, as much as is possible, avoided watching them so I can watch them here first and then give you my reaction live. So what I'm going to do first is play the clip of what the juror from the Depp versus Heard case stated, and then let you know my thoughts. So I have that clip ready to play here, and I'm going to play it now.
This morning, an ABC News exclusive. New details from the Johnny Depp Amber Heard defamation trial from a member of the jury who says a lot of Amber's story didn't add up, and the majority of the jury felt she was more the aggressor.
He balled up his fists, leaned back, and headbutted me square in the nose.
But never did I myself reach the point of striking Ms. Heard in any way.
The juror, one of 5 men on the 7-person jury, said Heard's emotional testimony was not realistic.
I want to move on with my life.
The crying, the facial expressions that she had, the staring at the jury, all of us were very uncomfortable. She would answer one question and she would be crying, and 2 seconds later she would turn ice cold. Some of us use the expression crocodile tears.
I didn't think he knew what he was doing. I don't know how. I don't want to do this. I don't want to do this.
On Depp's side, a lot of the jury felt what he was saying at the end of the day was more believable. He just seemed a little more real in terms of how he was responding to questions. His emotional state was very stable throughout.
It could begin with, throwing a TV remote at my head. It could be throwing a glass of wine in my face.
The juror said the revelation Heard had not donated her $7 million divorce settlement to charity was a fiasco for her.
You still haven't donated the $7 million divorce settlement to charity.
Incorrect. I pledged the entirety. I use pledge and donation synonymous with one another.
She goes on a talk show in the UK. The video shows her sitting there telling the host that she gave all that money away. And the terms she used in that video clip were, I gave it away. I donated it. It's gone. But the fact is, she didn't give much of it away at all. Yeah. He also disputed Heard's attorney's claim the jury was influenced by social media, saying, we followed the evidence. Myself and at least 2 other jurors don't use Twitter or Facebook. Others who had it made a point not to talk about it. He said, ultimately, what I think is truthful was that they were both abusive to each other. I don't think that makes either of them right or wrong. But to rise to the level of what she was claiming, there wasn't enough or any evidence that really supported what she was saying. He added that he believed Johnny did not hit Amber. And he also revealed the jury was given no guidance on the amount of money that both stars were awarded. He said each juror threw out a number that they thought was fair. And notably about the attorneys, he said he thought Depp's team was sharp, while Heard's team had sharp elbows, meaning they were abrupt. They frequently interrupted. Now, Heard, of course, does plan to appeal this, and Depp is about to be back in court.
So there you go. So it sounds like the juror was not that far away from getting the impression that many of us did, and it sounds like he also is stating that most of the jury, if not all of them, since he never stated that anyone had a really different view than his, it sounds like they got a similar impression to most of us who are watching, like getting obviously the impression that Amber was maybe faking some of her sadness. Like, I definitely use crocodile tears. Many people use that. The jury says that as well. And then on top of it, just getting the impression that she was lying. And just like I believe the fact that she said that she donated her money was, when she only pledged it, was shocking and appalling to many of us who were watching it. It also seemed like the jury really picked up on that, and it gave them the impression that she is a dishonest person, maybe a faker, to put it in unprofessional terms. But I'm glad they picked up on that, that really it came down to the fact that they felt that they couldn't trust her, that they felt that she was a dishonest person, that they felt that Johnny was an honest person who they could trust. I know that when I was watching the trial, like many people, my biggest fear was like, oh my God, like what if the jury can't see everything that all of us are seeing and they're somehow blinded to all this? But it seems like that was not the case. One way I disagree with the juror is, I don't really believe that the relationship was mutually abusive. I believe that Johnny was Amber's victim, and I believe that when you're victimized, you may not be a perfect victim. There is no such thing as a perfect victim. If you are a perfect victim, it's probably going to end pretty poorly for you. So, perhaps he didn't have like the best behaviors, but I wouldn't necessarily classify them as abusive. What would the best behavior be? Like getting out of the relationship earlier, but that gets into like victim blaming. So that's the one, aspect of this I don't really agree with the juror. So next, I am going to watch clips of Amber's interview that she did. Most of you have probably watched this. If you haven't, now is your opportunity. So this interview was actually filmed on June 9th, but it was just released in full this past Friday. Just to give you some context, so obviously this was all filmed since, the trial ended and the verdict was read. So I'm going to start with my first clip.
When you wrote the op-ed, it raised all of this again. Why did you do that if you wanted to just go on and put this past you?
Because the op-ed wasn't about my relationship with Johnny.
But it alluded to him. It was unmistakable.
What the op-ed was about was, me loaning my voice to a bigger cultural conversation that we were having at the time. It was about reforms, legislative reforms, renewing the Violence Against Women Act.
Did you worry? Gosh, I'd love to be a person weighing in on these cultural issues, but that's going to stir this all up again.
That's a great question, and one that I wish was considered more seriously because it's important.
When you wrote this op-ed, it was the height of Me Too. Legions of powerful men being canceled, losing their jobs. Did you want that to happen to Johnny Depp?
Of course not. It wasn't about him.
Okay, well, that was a lie. I really like this interviewer. I guess the interviewer's name is Savannah Guthrie. Well, she did a great job. Besides Amber's, lies that essentially no one who has watched the trial is going to believe. It bothers me, and I know it's something little to pick on, but her eyebrows really bother me. I can't tell if it's like terrible microblading fading or if she's like filling them in, but I don't know who told her to do this really harsh makeup look. Like, she looked so harsh during the trial. She looks so harsh now. If you look at pictures of her before this trial when she did the no makeup look, she honestly seemed like more innocent and believable. So that's just my feedback to her makeup artist. The harsh look makes her seem more like a villain and like someone you don't want to believe or don't want to trust.
You've been found liable for defamation against Johnny Depp. Having been found liable, are you nervous as we are here today about what you can say now?
Of course. I took for granted what I assumed was my right to speak. Not just about what I lived through, but what I knew.
Do you feel like you could be sued again by him for defamation?
I'm terrified, which is what I guess a defamation lawsuit is meant to do. It's meant to take your voice.
Okay, yeah, a defamation lawsuit is meant to take your voice. I think it's meant to stop you from telling lies, and also you could stop telling lies at any moment if you were that terrified of another case occurring. And now I'm going to move on to the next clip.
And whose fist was that?
That was Miss Heard's fist, Amber Heard's fist.
The Depp team argued that you were the abuser, that you instigated physical violence. Did you?
I never had to instigate it. I responded to it. When you're living in violence and it becomes normal, as I testified to, you have to adapt. You adopt strategies to cope with it. If it meant, as I testified to, if it meant the difference between a broken nose or a sore cheek, I would do it.
What about the witnesses who said they have seen you instigate physical violence? Did they all come in and lie in court?
I'm, less interested in sitting here, relitigating it with you. I am not here to call any of his witnesses any names. I'm not here to do that. I'm here to just kind of talk about it from what it felt like for me as a person who sat there.
Okay, so why are you here again? I'm quite confused by all this. I'm here to talk about what it felt like for me as a person. Okay, it's just like, I don't know why she even did this interview. She has to have some level of like almost delusion about how she's regarded, because every single thing she does digs a deeper hole for herself, and she continues to do it. Like, this interview is not making her look good. When she went on the stand at the end of her trial, it did not make her look good. She essentially sealed the deal on the case against her. But, she just really completely lacks insight into how she is perceived by the public. And with that, I will be moving on to the next clip.
There are tapes in which you acknowledge hitting. There are tapes in which you say, I started the fight.
I know much has been made of these audio tapes. And as I testified on the stand, what you would hear in those clips are not evidence of what was happening. It was evidence of a negotiation of how to talk about that with your abuser.
But I am looking at a transcript that he says, you start physical fights, and you say, I did start a physical fight.
I did start a physical fight.
You did.
That you're telling me today, I never started a physical fight, and here you are on tape saying you did.
As I testified on the stand about this, is that when your life is at risk, not only will you take the blame for things that you shouldn't take the blame for, but when you're in an abusive dynamic, psychologically, emotionally, and physically, you don't have the luxury of saying, hey, this is black and white, because it's anything but when you're living in it.
He says he never hit you. Never. Is that a lie?
Yes, it is.
He says he's never struck any woman. His lawyers argued at trial. None of his other prior relationships, not one woman has come forward and said he physically hit them. You were the only one.
Look what happened to me when I came forward. Would you?
Yeah, so what happened to her when she came forward was she got tons of positive attention, roles she wouldn't have otherwise gotten, became the face of the Me Too movement. The only bad things that have ever happened to her is because of her participation in this trial, her very overt lies that, once again, it doesn't take a professional to see through, her continued doing these interviews where she is, comes across as incredibly untruthful, and, really the only people who believe her are people who have their own abuse history. They're generally women. They have a similar abuse history is what she claims she has, and they're not paying attention to the trial and just automatically, whatever lies they read of hers, it resonates with them. So what I honestly wonder, and I haven't totally figured out, is like, you know, how much she convinces herself her lies are true. Like, I do not believe that she truly believes any of the like crazy stories that she's making up or anything like that, which it's very overtly stories because she can't keep them straight. But like, you know, if she has somehow convinced herself that she was the actual victim in that relationship, and I honestly believe that she probably has convinced herself of that. And she's like, well, you know, if I just told what really happened, no one would believe that I was the victim, because she wasn't. So, you know, she makes up all of these lies. And when she started down the path, do I think that, you know, she actually believes she was Johnny's victim? No. I think that this was all plotted. It was, you know, for her career, for her future. But then somewhere along the line, I think now she believes that she's Johnny's victim, and especially because of, you know, him winning this defamation case against her. So I think that's, you know, somewhere this is like coming from that, like, you know, he's victimizing me by not letting me destroy his life anymore type of thing. And then maybe looking back on her relationship and everything, and obviously she seems like she's probably completely in denial of the things she's done. Like, even if she very overtly set out on a course to destroy his life while furthering her name and her career, that she could actually deny that to herself and see her as the victim amidst all this. And that would be very in line with someone who is a narcissist. Like, they're always going to see themselves as, you know, the victim when they want to be the victim, even if they're victimizing other people.
Is there one piece of evidence that you wish the jury had seen that you could point to? You say, this would have made the difference.
Yeah.
What is it?
There's a binder worth of years of notes dating back to 2011 from the very beginning of my relationship that were taken by my doctor, who I was reporting the abuse to.
That doctor was Amber's therapist at the time. We looked at notes the doctor took during some of their sessions, which show that as far back as 2012, Amber was talking about physical abuse. In January of that year, she told her therapist Depp hit her, threw her on the floor. 8 months after that, ripped her nightgown, threw her on bed. And in 2013, the therapist's notes say he threw her against a wall and threatened to kill her.
I am talking about what's happening to me in real time. She was taking contemporaneous notes of what was happening.
Amber's lawyers also showed us text messages that were excluded from trial, like this one she sent to another therapist saying, "Johnny did a number on me. I thought I had a concussion." And this text message she says she sent to her father after that disputed incident on the plane. She wrote, "He kicked me in front of everyone."
I testified I was attacked on that flight, and I was attacked in front of people. And when I got off the plane, sent messages to people about what had happened. I'm angry because this happened. Can you believe he did this and this and this, you know? And one of the people I reached out to was my father.
Depp's lawyers say the judge's rulings were fair, and a Depp spokesperson told us it's unfortunate that the defendant and her team are back to repeating, reimagining, and relitigating matters that have already been decided by the courts.
So she's still quite fixated on her evidence, which is just things she told other people, when once again she was plotting Johnny's demise and her, you know, career and future and all that. Like, okay, just because I send a text message to someone saying that, like, you know, they shot me, doesn't mean that they actually shot me. Like, you can say anything. You can tell your therapist literally anything you want to, and they will write it down. Like, whether or not they believe you, like, part of a therapist's job is to just document whatever you tell them. You don't have to give them any proof. Therapists are certainly not doing any physical exam to corroborate your story. So in some ways, it seems crazy that she's still fixated on these aspects of, like, the proof of her story that have been refuted so many times. But then again, like, what else is she going to do but dig her heels in harder?
The Depp lawyer called your testimony the performance of a lifetime, and said you were acting. What do you say to that?
Says the lawyer for the man who convinced the world he had scissors for fingers. I'm the performer. I had listened to weeks of testimony insinuating that, or saying quite directly that, I'm a terrible actress. So I'm a bit confused how I could be both.
Well, no one thinks you're a good actress, Amber. Everyone thinks you're a terrible actress, but that you're trying very, very, very hard. And I don't think Johnny Depp convinced anyone he had scissors for fingers. He was playing a role and he was doing it well, but everyone knew it was a role. Whereas you're playing a role and you're not doing it well, and everyone knows, once again, it's a role. So, I mean, does she plan out what she's gonna say ahead of time? Because it seems like she just gets in her head and just spews out things that are nonsensical and then goes and does it again. Okay, so final clip.
There's no polite way to say it. The jury looked at the evidence you presented. They listened to your testimony and they did not believe you. They thought you were lying.
I'll put it this way. How could they make a judgment? How could they not come to that bold, almost unrecognizable to myself ways? I have so much regret.
On the first day of the trial, you issued a statement, and part of the statement said, "I still have love for Johnny."
Yes.
Is that still true?
Yes.
After everything?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I love him. I loved him with all my heart. And I tried the best I could to make a deeply broken relationship work. And I couldn't.
Amber Heard says she intends to appeal her case, and she's concerned her defeat may be a setback for other women.
I hope this hasn't, had the chilling effect that I worry it may have on other people. I worry about that. But if I can look you in the eye, Savannah, and say I'm still here, and maybe that serves to balance out some of the very, very real fear others may have about coming forward or speaking out.
Well, the lies just pile on, don't they? I mean, maybe she somehow has convinced herself that she really loves Johnny. I feel like if you are someone like her, probably the only way to exist, if you're going and, making all these crazy accusations and ruining people's lives, is to then maybe tell yourself a lie about things so that it makes it easier for you to be with yourself. I don't know. It could, on one hand, be just a complete overt lie, or it might be that it's a lie that she's convinced herself of. And some part of me thinks that it certainly could be the latter. But of course her reflection on the trial is that the jury sided in Johnny's favor because of all the paid witnesses. Once again, completely, she never takes any responsibility for anything. It's always, other people are lying, etc., etc. There's never any responsibility taken, even when it's pointed out, that she never took responsibility for anything on the stand. And that is probably a huge reason why the jury sided with Johnny, because, he confessed to his shortcomings. He was open about his substance use issues. He was open about any ways he was an imperfect human, and she never took responsibility for anything. And her answer to that is, "Oh, I've changed. I'm a different person. I didn't address any of that because I was a different person then." Well, you might believe you are a different person, but you are the same person to everyone except for yourself, perhaps. Maybe you have somehow convinced yourself. Cognitive dissonance, perhaps she's utilizing that to get through everything that she's done, but just the lies never really end with her. In a lot of ways, I'm not surprised. In other ways, it is how long is this going to go on for? Well, that's it for now. I hope you enjoyed my take, and let me know if you have any thoughts. And I'm, eager to hear anyone who agrees with me or disagrees with me. Just let me know your opinion and what your thoughts were on the juror as well as Amber's interview. And if you haven't already, feel free to like this video, comment, and subscribe. and turn on notifications.